Hello everyone. This month's masterclass is called Basic Defensive Principles. Now, some of you might feel like you're still a bit unsure with these. Some of you might feel like you're old hat with all these sorts of things, but don't worry, there'll be something for everyone. So the three categories of principle that we're going to talk about today are positional principles, defending with honours, and thwarting declarer. Let's talk about positional principles first. So the first thing to establish is what the point of the whole thing is. So what we're trying to do when we're thinking about the position on each trick is how can we make declarer's life difficult? How can we try to surround and trap declarer's honours? And this, of course, like all good defence, will involve some element of cooperation between you and your partner. So you both need to be on the same page about whose job it is to play which suit, and how position affects that. First of all, we have to talk about what position actually means. So, fairly basic stuff, but it actually gets quite deep quite quickly. So on each trick, you have 4 possible positions you can be in. You can be in first position, which means that you're the person who's leading. You can be second, you can be third, and you can be fourth. And after that, a new trick starts, of course. But with each position come advantages and disadvantages. And this may be something that you've been dimly aware of or maybe haven't thought about in any great detail. But let's talk about each position and how that might affect your strategy when you're defending. So first of all, let's think about when we're the first person. So we're first to play to the trick, so great news for us is that we get to choose the suit. We're not at the mercy of whatever somebody else decided. If we want to play a spade, we can play a spade. But the problem is that it's very, very unlikely that we're going to be the person who wins the trick. That's not to say the trick can't go to our side, but unless we're playing an ace or playing, the highest card in the suit, we're very unlikely to have 100% certainty that we're going to get to choose the next trick as well. Being second is obviously not as good as being first, but there is one advantage, which is that if your partner has a high card in the suit, you can kind of let your partner be in control of what happens on the trick. Because you don't have so much power, you can leave that final decision to your partner. So it does take the pressure off very slightly, and we'll talk a little bit more about this later on when we go into what the principles actually are. The disadvantage, of course, is that if your partner only has low cards, declarer is going to be whatever you can play. So it's really unlikely that you're going to win this trick as well. So the problem is that you have the disadvantage of being early on, just like you did when you were first, but you don't get any choice about what to play, so you don't get that advantage. Being second is generally pretty rubbish. Being third is, not amazing, but it's not terrible. You do get an opportunity that's close to the end of the trick to make a last-ditch attempt to win it. And sometimes you're in a nice position where it's actually dummy sitting on your left who's about to be fourth. And if that's the case, you can see how high you have to play to try to win the trick. And sometimes you can be sure that you're about to win it. So that's good. It kind of comes as we go around the table, the decisions become clearer and clearer. The disadvantage is that if it's declarer playing after you, you might have to guess quite how high you need to go to try to win the trick. You don't get that fourth player advantage, which is that you know for certain whether you're going to win the trick. So you can see 3 cards in front of you, and your decision in fourth is just, okay, if they've played high cards and I can't possibly beat them, how can I conserve my lowest card? Well, conserve my high cards and play my lowest card. Versus, okay, they've played the 9, that's the highest card on the trick, and I've got the 10, yippee. I get to win a trick with my 10, and you know that for sure. So that's a nice thing about being fourth. Of course, you don't have that advantage that you would have in first position, where you get to choose the suit. So because you're in fourth, you're really at the mercy of whatever the first person decided to play. You might not be ready to play that suit yet. And indeed, if thinking about defense, if it's the first person who started the trick on your left, then it wasn't your partner who chose the suit either, so you don't get the advantage even by proxy. So let's talk about these second and third positions, because these were a little bit more complicated. We said they were a bit more awkward. There was a bit more of a question of will we, won't we win the trick. So the positional principles that we need to kind of get into our heads when we're defending are all about what to do when you're in these awkward positions. And the first one is about what to do in your second hand. And if you're in second hand, generally the idea is that you should play low and in tempo, which just means that you're not thinking about what to do. Should I play a high card? Should I play a low card? You smoothly play your low card and you let declarer struggle. So this is one of the reasons you would do it. First of all, to avoid crashing honors together. This is a horrible situation that you might have seen before, where, for example, the first player plays the 2 of diamonds, you try playing your king, declarer plays the 4, and then your partner's ace pops up and you think, oh, partner, why did you win the trick? You've squashed the ace and the king together. And then you realise that actually partner had a singleton ace and had no choice about the matter. So by playing your king, you actually squashed both cards together. So, you don't, just like we were talking about with those advantages of second hand, don't let them turn into a disadvantage. Let your partner be the one who makes that decision, because you don't quite know what your partner has in the suit yet, most of the time. Another thing is that it avoids giving away to declarer who holds which honor. Sometimes declarer has to do a little bit of hard work, so this is what I was alluding to a moment ago. If we just smoothly play low, we do it in tempo, we don't have a bit of a think and then play low, declarer doesn't have any inferences about who has which card. So if declarer sees the 2 from the dummy and then they see the 3 from you in second, how do they know how high they're supposed to go? They've got this third position sort of semi-advantage where, they might be able to win the trick. They've got a real chance of doing it, but they have to guess quite how high they have to play. So it's a bit of a disadvantage in this position because we played low. We haven't given away that we have the ace, for example. The final reason to play second hand low is that it actually gives your partner the 4th position advantage. So this is a little bit like, avoiding crashing the honors together, but it's a little bit subtler than this. It just means that your partner has full control over what wins or loses the trick, because they get to see all 3 cards in front of them and you haven't kind of popped up and won the trick in front of them. Sometimes it can even give away a trick to do this if they were just waiting to win a cheap trick that declarer was going to let them have. So it just gives them the full enjoyment of that advantage. Okay, the second principle that we need to talk about is about what to do when you're third, which is different, of course, from what you do when you're in second. And this one, of course, is third hand high, which you may well have heard of. So that means that when you're in third, you should generally play the highest card you can. But remember to check the dummy. So I have had students before who've said, oh, well, I played the king and then I lost control of the suit. And I said, oh, but did you check the dummy? Because dummy had the queen. And you could have just played the jack once you saw that the dummy hadn't played that card. So, highest card possible, but the highest card that you need to. If you can see that the queen is on your right, like in this example. In fact, you can even see that the queen and the 10 are on your right in third position. You get to see the 2. You get to see whatever dummy plays. It could be the queen, it could be the 10, it could be the 3, and you're prepared for anything. Because if the second player, presumably the dummy, plays the queen, you can play the king on top. If they play the 10, you can play the jack on top. And if they play the 3, you can play the 9. And all of those are going to be big enough to force out the ace. So this is one of the reasons why we play third hand high. We're trying to force out high cards rather than letting declarer get away with murder and win with a cheap trick. And another reason is that you can promote a card in your partner's hand. Remember, the more high cards that get played to a particular trick, the higher the intermediate cards become. So for example, with this one, it's not so much about forcing declarer to win the ace rather than the jack. They might make their jack anyway. But the idea here is that by playing the king, you remove the ace from the game. Or maybe they choose not to win the trick. But either way, what you're doing is forcing declarer into that position where they have to choose. And if the king and the ace get played on the same trick, now your partner's queen becomes the highest card in the suit. So it feels a bit sad. I'm playing my king, it's just going to get squashed by the ace. But it's not just about what's in your hand, it's about what's in your partner's hand. So here's an example where you try playing the 10 instead. Now the jack wins cheaply and neither of you have the highest card in the suit. Whereas if instead you choose to play the king, there goes the ace, and partner has the highest card in the suit. So that's good news. Okay, the other thing we need to think about in terms of positional principles, we don't have any for fourth because we have that lovely fourth position advantage where we know for sure what to play when we can see all the other 3 cards. But now that we're comfortable with second and third, what do we do if we're choosing which suit to play? We're in first position and we need to decide what to lead or switch to. We don't know. So we need a principle for that. So the idea here is that you play through strength and towards weakness. So this is a kind of funny bridge terminology, which requires a really good understanding of the visualization of the table. So what you're aiming to do is to choose a suit that puts potential or known strength in the second position. So if you're first, which is what we're talking about here, second position is on your left, and potential or known weakness in fourth position. That'll be on your right. So remember, both the people on your left and your right are your opponents. So what's that going to mean for them? Well, it means that when they're in second position, I'll show you that in a moment, when they're in second position, they're starting to get all the second position disadvantages. You don't really want to be in second position, but if you're the only side with high cards, you're under a bit of pressure now. And similarly, if you're in fourth position, you'd love to be waiting there with all your high cards, but if you don't have any high cards there, you can't use your fourth position advantage. So now I'll show you this example. So here we've got 2 suits that we might play. We've got diamonds and clubs. And in theory, it's much of a muchness what we play. Each out of us and our partner, we have the same holding. The only difference is that the declarer and dummy's holdings are swapped. So if you consider playing a diamond first of all, say you play your 2 of diamonds, that's going to go round to 2, 3, and 4. And that puts declarer in this nice position where they've got the ace and the jack, and they get to choose how high they play to win the trick. But if we swap the suits the other way around and we choose to play a club, we play a club, but now declarer has to choose whether to play the ace or the jack from the dummy. And when they get to their fourth position, they don't have any high cards to threaten our partner with. So our partner is now in this nice third position situation where they can see the high cards in the dummy, and therefore they're actually getting the fourth position advantage, but in third. So that's quite nice. So probably you'll have a bit of an understanding already about the advantages of doing this and the reasons why we do it, but I'll run through them just to make sure. So we're trying to minimize declarer's fourth position advantage. Remember, because we're the ones who are first, it's always the opponents who get to play last. So we're trying to make sure they can't do anything good with that. Similarly, we're trying to maximize their second position disadvantage. So we want to put them in a position where they're not really sure how high they're supposed to play because they don't know what's going to happen in third. And they know that they haven't got anything good in fourth. Because they're declarer, they can see both of their own hands. So actually, far from thinking, oh, I'll leave the decision to my partner, they kind of know they can't do anything about it. So they'll despair even more. Another thing is that we want to try to maximize partner's potential to win the trick. So this is all about giving partner the fourth position advantage. And remember that partner's going to be playing third hand high. So either they're going to be winning the trick themselves, or they're going to be promoting a trick. They're not just going to play a little card because they've learned their defensive principles and they're going to play third hand high. Okay, so we know the basic principles now and how we defend based on our position in the trick. Now we need to think about what we do when we have an honor in the suit. So the first principle that I want you to think about is cover an honor with an honor. And this is a little bit less clear sometimes. Sometimes it can be right not to cover. But most of the time it is right to cover, and this is why. So we're in a position where our right-hand opponent plays an honor. This includes the 10. And we have a higher honor. Not worrying about the ace, it's not relevant here. So in this position, we see our right-hand opponent's honor, and we also want to be playing an honor on top of that, rather than low in second position, as we normally would. So this seems a little bit contradictory. And obviously, there can be advantages to playing low, which go hand in hand with second hand low, like making declarer guess something. But sometimes there's no guess for declarer. Sometimes it's really important to cover an honor with an honor because you want to promote an intermediate card. And an intermediate card will be something like a 10, a 9, maybe even an 8. So let's look at this example. We are in second position. We've got Queen 9, 8, 2. Dummy, for the sake of argument, plays the jack. When we play the queen on top, that forces out the ace. Now, they can cash the king. We just follow low, and we have the 9 and the 8 left. Then they cash their winning 10. They throw away, let's say, a club from the dummy. And you'll notice that there are only 2 diamonds left in the game. One is the 3, and the other one is the 9. And we're the ones who have the 9. So we've now promoted a winner for ourselves by covering that jack. So let's see what would happen instead if we hadn't covered. So the jack is played and we choose to play low. We don't follow this principle of covering an honor with an honor. We play low. Declarer takes a finesse. Then they play another diamond. We have nothing to cover now, so we play the 8. They take another finesse by winning with the 10. And now they cash the ace. And now you'll notice that once again, there are 2 diamonds left. One's the king and one's the queen though. And we're the ones with the queen. So actually we don't get a trick in the suit. So the whole idea behind covering the honor was not anything to do with our queen, really. It was all about this 9 that we were trying to promote for ourselves. Another reason you might do it is to promote one of your partner's intermediate cards. And obviously this is a lot harder to spot because you don't know exactly what your partner has in his hand. So once again, the Jack is played. This time we only have the 6. We're not expecting to promote anything for ourselves, since when is the 6 going to win on the 3rd round of the suit? Very, very unlikely. If it happens, it's a mistake. So it goes Jack. We cover an honor with an honor because that's the principle we're supposed to follow. The ace comes out. Now the king is cashed and the 10 is cashed. And once again, there are 2 diamonds left, but it's our partner who has the winning 9. So what we've done is we've promoted a trick for our partner. And just to make sure we can compare with what would happen if we hadn't done this, we would just be letting the same thing as before happen. The Jack would be played, Declarer would take a finesse, then they take a finesse by playing small to the 10, and there we go, they've got 4 tricks in the suit. So it's the same, but it looks different. Okay, the other principle to keep in mind when you have an honor and you're defending is that when you're discarding, you need to keep your honors guarded. And we'll talk about what that means in a moment. So think about how many small cards you need to keep with your honors for them to still be tricks afterwards. You do not want to unguard your honors unless you don't have any other choice. So maybe you don't have any cards in any suits other than that suit and you have to throw one away. Of course it happens. But this isn't a sort of ideally, you don't want to be doing this. So think about the king. So with the king, you need to keep 1 small card because that needs to be a card that you can play if someone plays the ace. You supply your small card and now the king is a winner. But if you don't have that small card, when someone plays the ace, your king will just fall. As a similar principle with the queen, you need to keep 2 small cards. So you need to keep a couple of cards to go underneath the ace and the king, and then your queen will be a winner. And with the Jack, you need to have 3 small cards to go underneath the ace, the king, and the queen. So you're trying to keep your trick. This is something we've discussed. And another reason for doing this is that if your partner also has a trick in the suit, this might stop him from coming under pressure when he's trying to discard. If you make sure you hang on to the only suit you have to guard, then maybe your partner can freely discard it, even if he does have a bit of something in that suit. Okay, the final category of defensive principle that we're going to talk about today is thwarting declarer. And this is actually the most important principle that you need to know, but it's the one that people think about the least, I think. So on every hand, a good defender will be thinking about the following questions. How is declarer playing the hand? What is he trying to achieve? And how can I best counteract that? So the idea of defense is not to blindly follow rules like second hand low, third hand high. These are principles. These are going to guide you to doing the best thing and leave you with more room to think about these actual questions. These are the important things to be thinking about. So here are some examples. How is declarer playing the hand? Is he drawing trumps? Is he zipping in between the 2 hands using lots of entries up? Is he trying to establish a suit? What is he actually doing? And then what is he trying to achieve? So if he's not drawing trumps, does that mean he's trying to rough things instead? is he trying, is he trying to play his short suits to void himself in those so he can ruff some things? If he's not freely bouncing between the two hands using up all his entries, is he hell-bent on getting to the dummy? Or if he's not establishing a suit, which seems like quite a frequent thing you would be doing as declarer, is he just dancing between lots of different suits, trying to get a trick here and a trick there? Sometimes declarers do that instead. Sometimes there's not one suit that they feel completely confident trying to establish. And then finally, the question you have to consider is, okay, so I can see what declarer is actually doing in the play. I can imagine what he's trying to achieve by doing that. But what do I do about it? So basically, you have to counteract it. You have to do the opposite if you can. So if declarer is trying to rough things, you should be trying to draw trumps. It's very suspicious if declarer is not drawing trumps. If declarer is desperately trying to get to dummy, then you need to make sure you make it your mission to stop him from getting there. So sometimes it means you can take out dummy's entries. Sometimes it even means you can deliberately block suits or deliberately play second hand high, even. So you can break one of the more mundane principles in aid of this most important principle. And if he's trying to sneak tricks in suits rather than establish them, then it might mean that he's worried about something. Maybe there's one particular strong suit that you and your partner need to really go for. Maybe you've got some winners there and he's trying to not let you in. Okay, so you can rewatch the video, of course, if you need a bit more time to absorb the principles, but if you're feeling confident, you can head over to the Basic Defensive Principles tournament on Funbridge and try the practice hands for yourself and see how you get on. I'm sure there will be a mixture of things. Some of the hands are easier than others, so don't be discouraged if you find them very difficult. They're designed to be interesting hands. So yes, have fun, and I will see you after you've played the hands.